Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. And today I am going to be taking a look at the very impressive catalogue from a musician who I've been wanting to talk about for quite some time on this series. And he's one of my favourite bass players of all time. And he's not very well known outside of Canada, but he has been quietly building himself up a very strong reputation as an amazing composer and as an incredible bass player as well. And in my opinion, I put him up there as one of the best bass players on the scene today. And I definitely put him up there with the Stanley Clarkes, the John Patituccis, and the Brian Brombergs of the world. He's that good. And he incorporates a variety of different styles and genres into his music, from jazz fusion to progressive rock, to metal, to chamber classical. There's even elements of avant-garde as well. And he's a very highly versatile musician. He plays all of the basses, he plays guitars, he plays nylon string acoustic guitar, he even plays chapman stick as well, keyboards, you name it. This guy is a multi-instrumentalist and he is the real deal. And he has played and collaborated and featured some of the biggest and most important names in all genres on his albums, from Jerry Goodman of Mahavinshnu Orchestra to Dave Weckl of the Chick Corea Elektric / Acoustic Band, to Scott Henderson of Tribal Tech, to Gary Husband of Allan Holdsworth, to Terry Bozzio of UK / Frank Zappa, to Gavin Harrison of Porcupine Tree and King Crimson and Pineapple Thief, to Virgil Donati of Planet X. You name it, this guy doesn't mess about and he produces top quality music, and this is world-class musicianship. And the gentleman I'm talking about needs no introduction whatsoever. I am talking about, of course, the one and only bassist, composer and bandleader Antoine Fafard. Now, the first time I became aware of Antoine Fafard, he was playing as a guest artist with Canadian progressive rock band Mystery, and he was featured on a couple of albums, and I thought his playing on those two albums with Mystery were just fantastic. He was definitely one of the standout guys of that band, and I wanted to know more about him. I thought, who is this incredible bass player? You know, he's just so unique. I don't think I've ever heard anyone quite like him, because the thing about Antoine Fafard, he brings kind of like a shredding style in his bass playing. He can play really fast, but he can also play very melodic lines as well. And, you know, like I said earlier, he's very highly versatile. Plays the bass, plays like nylon string acoustic guitar. You know, he's got a very unique voice in his instruments. So I decided to check out some of his music and I was absolutely blown away. Not just by the playing, but by the quality of the writing, the production. As I said, this is a guy who doesn't mess about. He doesn't take any prisoners. He just hits you right in the face. So Antoine Fafard first burst onto the scene in the early 2000s with his band Spaced Out. Now, Spaced Out, just like Antoine Fafard's solo work, again, very difficult to categorize, and they incorporated a variety of different styles, from jazz fusion to progressive rock to metal. You know, these guys really brought a shredding style in their music. So after a string of albums and a couple of live recordings, Antoine Fafard went solo, and he's been producing and making his own music since 2011. And as I said, he features some of the biggest and most important names of all genres. So for today's edition, we are going to be taking a look at his outstanding catalogue of albums, which is a total of 7 recordings, 6 solo albums, and 1 co-led album. Now, I can honestly tell you, all of the albums are very different, and they're all fantastic, they're all well produced, and it's going to be a very hard one to choose which one I think is the best one, because they're all really good. So, as always, I'm going to be talking about each album individually, and then I'll choose which one I think is the best one. Not easy. Hard challenge, but challenge accepted nonetheless. And we're going to start by talking about the first album, which came out in 2011, and this is Solus Operandi. So this is the solo debut recording of Antoine Fafard, and it's a good one. It's really, really good. Well produced, top-notch production, top world-class musicianship. Nothing dull about this album whatsoever. This is as good as it gets. And all of the compositions are written and composed by Antoine Fafard, and it really shows you how strong he is as a composer and as a bass player as well. Now, a lot of the songs on here are relatively short. Some are like 4 minutes long, some are 5 minutes long. I think the longest track on here is like under 6 minutes long, but it doesn't take away from the fact that this is some top-notch music. If you like jazz fusion, or you like that shredding kind of style, this is the guy for you. This is the man. And this is a guy, as I mentioned before, this is a guy who doesn't mess around. You know, he takes no prisoners, and he holds nothing back, and he hits you right in the face, and he does not disappoint. One thing I will say about Antoine Fafard, there's no dull album, there's no dull moments on any of his albums. So musicians that are featured on this recording are John Anderson, not to be confused with John Anderson from Yes. We got Eric Borddrout, Eric Brosenshawn, Mahavinshnu, Chromia, Jerry DeVilliers Jr., who's one of his main collaborators on some of his early projects, Jean-Pierre Dodel, Marc Laflamme, Martin Mahus, Vincent Perrin, Stéphane Pelletier, Tom Quayle, Mark Tremblay, and of course the legendary Dave Weckl from the Chick Corea Elektric Band / Akoustic Band. So let's have a look. So there's all the compositions and who plays on what. So Antoine Fafard plays classical guitar and fretless bass. John Anderson plays trumpet. Eric Borddrout plays drums on one track, and Eric Brosenshaw plays 6 and 12 string guitars. Mahavinshnu Chromia plays drums on a few tracks. Jerry DeVilliers Jr. plays electric guitar. Jean-Pierre Dodel plays electric guitar. Martin Morse plays drums on most of the album. Stéphane Pelletier plays classical guitar on one track. Vincent Pellerin plays soprano sax. Tom Quayle on electric guitar, and Mark Tremblay on electric guitar. Marc Laflamme on drums, and also Dave Weckl on drums as well. Some excellent stuff here. So we've got some sleeve notes from Fafard, which you can see there. There is the man himself. There's all the guys. And there's all the guys here as well. And there's all the guys as well. And of course, last but certainly not least, the man himself. So, excellent collection of songs. No dull moments here. The standout tracks for me, I would say, are Rebirth, Coda, New Venture, E+3, Horny Cat, Acoustic Trap, Free Motion, the A-Tune, Rebirth, Cape Spear, Smooth Bees, and Free Spirit and Side Passage. But all of the songs from top to bottom are just absolutely excellent. And as I said, if I was to highly recommend an Antoine Fafard album, this is the first place to start. This is the one that kicked it all off, but it's really, really good. So there you have it. Solus Operandi, an excellent debut recording by Antoine Fafard, and a guy who's just only getting started, and the best is yet to come, because we move on to the next album, which came out in 2013, and this is Occultus Tramitis, an excellent follow-up to Solus Operandi, and Antoine Fafard once again delivers yet another epic masterpiece. So, little bit different to the last album, but it's still very much in the style that Antoine Fafard is known for. So musicians we got featured on here are Gavin Harrison, Jerry Goodman, Scott Henderson, Dave Weckl, Jean-Paul Zanella, Terry Bozzio, Jerry DeVilliers Jr., and we also got Emmanuel Caplette on drums, and we got Denis Labrosse on second bass, Magnilla Cormier on drums, George Hayes on guitar, and Martin Mahouf on drums. So some pretty big heavy hitters on this album. So we're just going to have a quick look. So we got a list of who plays on what track. All of the music is written and composed by Antoine Fafard, except for one classical piece which was written and composed by Johann Sebastian Bach. More on that in a moment. So we got some sleeve notes from Fafard, credits, who plays on one track, and a little bit of information about each of the tracks. Same as earlier, who plays on what tracks, and a little bit of information about each track, and there as well. And there's all the guys. Very much a who's who of music. And there we go. Excellent stuff. So, tracks we got here are Piece 4, The Chamber, Good Reasons, Sum of Six, Holding Back Time, Fur and Axe, Funk Evil, Trio, Candadian, Metamorphosis, and Prelude No. 2 in C minor. So the standout tracks for me are Piece 4 with Jerry Goodman and Gavin Harrison, The Chamber, which is one of my personal favourites. Scott Henderson just goes absolutely nuts on the guitar, and we've got Dave Weckl on drums. So we've kind of got like classic members of the first incarnation of the Chick Corea Elektric Band, with Antoine Fafard just going all nuts on the bass. And Good Reasons is another standout track for me. Holding Back Time is a great track as well. We've got Terry Bozzio. He brings such a percussive sound to the drum, so it's not just him crash bang wallop. You know, he really adds a lot of beats with his drum kit and incorporates a lot of great sounds as well. You know, he's not just about playing busy or overplaying. You know, Terry Bozzio is a thinking man's drummer, and you know, some of the sounds he gets is just stellar. And Jerry Goodman's violin playing is just perfection. Fur and Axe, again with Jerry Goodman, and with this time we've got Chad Wackerman, another standout track as well. And what a great way to close out the album, just Antoine Fafard on solo bass. Doesn't get any better than that. Excellent album, great follow-up to Solus Operandi. Love this album. This is actually one of my personal favourites. So there you have it. Occultus Tramitis, an excellent album from Antoine Fafard. So as we move on to the next album, which came out in 2014, and this is Ad Perpetuum. So again, a little bit different to the last two albums, but still very much in the style of Antoine Fafard. So it's a set band here. We've got Vinnie Colaiuta on drums, Jerry De Villiers Jr. and Antoine Fafard. So it's more or less a power trio recording. And we got some special guests featured on here as well. So we got Jerry Etkins, Gary Husband, and Jean-Pierre Zanella. A really good album this is, and a great follow-up to Occultus Transmittis. So all of the tracks are written and composed by Antoine Fafard, except by one track which is co-written by Antoine Fafard and Jerry De Villiers Jr. So let's have a quick look. So there's all the tracks. Who plays on what track, and a little bit of information about the tracks as well. And same as before. And same as before as well. So it's just a little breakdown of who plays on what. And same as before. Yeah, same as before. So it's just pretty much more the same thing. And there's all the guys as well, as you can see. But excellent stuff here. So tracks we got here is Shuffle It, which is more or less a power trio track. We've got Riff and Raft, Poly 7, Same But Different, 5-Course Meal, D-Day, Eternal Loop, /1, The Egg, Pre-Silence. So it's an excellent collection of songs. So the standout tracks for me are Shuffle It, Same But Different, D-Day, which has got Vinnie Colaiuta and Gary Husband together. So we got two of the best drummers in the world playing side by side. Vinnie Colaiuta is on the left channel and Gary Husband is on the right channel. So drum wars. And another standout track for me is /1 and Pre-Silence. But again, just like with all of Fafard's stuff, there's no bad track here. They're all good. And they're all well produced. So there you have it. Ad Perpetuum, another fantastic album from Antoine Fafard and a great follow-up to Occultus Transmittis. Absolutely enjoyable, and again, another personal favourite of mine. Love this one. So we move on to the next one, which came out in 2016, and this is Sphere. Now, this is a special edition of Sphere, which has got 3 bonus tracks, and this is pretty much a power trio recording. So we've got Antoine Fafard on bass, classical and acoustic guitars. We've got Gary Husband on drums, lead synth and piano, and longtime collaborator Jerry De Villiers Jr. on lead guitar. This is top-notch stuff and another personal favourite of mine. So let's see what we got here. Let's have a look. So there's the tracks. So all of the music is written and composed by Antoine Fafard, except 3 tracks which are co-written by Antoine Fafard and Jerry De Villiers Jr. So there's sleeve notes. There's the geniuses at work, as you can plainly see. The man himself. The beast behind the drums, Gary Husband, who I had the privilege of meeting. Really cool guy. There they are again. There's some more here. The guys in action. The dynamic duo. Now, Gary Husband's actually featured as quite a bit on some of Fafard's albums. He would go on to become one of Fafard's main collaborators for the next couple of albums, and there's some really good stuff there with these two. It's just pure magic. And there's some more. And some more. Gary Husband. Another shot of the two geniuses at work. There we are. Nice. Oh, love it. I love it. And there we are. So tracks we got here is Reminiscence, Renaissance Man, Factor, Non Verba, Fur and Axis Part 2, which is kind of like carrying on from the last album. Still Invictus, Cherishing, No Brainer, Celestial Roots, Bubonic Groove, and the 3 bonus tracks we got is Right on Time, Mechanical Inspiration, and Quiescent. Really good album this is. Really enjoyable. And as I said, you know, if you listen to a lot of Fafard's albums, you can actually hear a lot of the influence of Allan Holdsworth. I know Allan Holdsworth never played with Antoine Fafard, but you could definitely hear, if you listen to like some of the guitar solos, you can definitely hear some of Allan Holdsworth's influence in the guitar playing. It's really, really good. And plus you got Gary Husband as well, which makes all the difference. And he is the real difference maker on some of these albums, you know, the way he's just switching between drums and keyboards and piano. You know, Gary Husband's no slouch as well. He's the real deal. So standout tracks for me are Reminisce, Cherishing, Fur and Axis Part 2, Celestial Root, Bionic Groove, and, you know, the Right on Time, which is one of the bonus tracks, Mechanical Inspiration. And another favourite track of mine is Cherishing, but it's a really good album this is, and a great follow-up to Ad Perpetuum. So there you have it, Sphere. Absolutely fantastic. So we move on to the next album, which came out in 2017, and this could very well be my favourite. And this is a double album. This is Proto Mundi. So by this point, you know, Antoine Fafard has pretty much established himself as a solo artist, and he's had a variety of different guests. So this is more of a band album, and this features the legendary Simon Phillips on drums, Jerry Goodman on violin, and Gary Husband on keyboards. So in a way, you could kind of say Proto Mundi is the closest thing to a progressive rock album that Antoine Fafard has in his entire catalogue. It's really, really good. And we got the bonus disc as well, Doomsday Vault, which is more or less like remastered versions of tracks from his previous albums, and it includes some unreleased material as well. So really, really good album this is. So Proto Mundi has 3 tracks, but they're all long epics. So the first track we got is Mission Ganjamidi, and then it goes into part 2, The Journey, and then it goes into part 3, Empty World. Really, really good album this is. So let's have a look. There's the 4 Musketeers in action. I have to say that, you know, Jerry Goodman's violin playing really brings that Mahavinshnu feel to it. And I remember I said a long time ago that this album, it's just a bit of information about the tracks. This album to me is like if John McLaughlin put the classic lineup of Mahavinshnu Orchestra back together with Billy Cobham, Jan Hammer, and Rick Laird. This is what they would sound like in the 21st century, because a lot of it to me does sound like the Mahavinshnu Orchestra. So a bit more information about the tracks. There's a little bit more breakdown of the second track. And some more about the second track. There's a cool shot of Simon Phillips, whose drumming really shines brightly on this album, and he's the real difference maker, as is Gary Husband as well. I mean, this is a super group of the highest order, and these guys really play well together. And some more information about the third track, and some more sleeve notes about the album, and a little bit more here as well. Now, on the Doomsday Vault, as I mentioned, it is basically remastered versions of tracks from his previous albums, but they're just like redone, and there's also some new tracks as well, which were never released and only featured on the Doomsday Vault. So there's some sleeve notes about the Doomsday Vault. So they're all like remixed versions of some of his tracks. So there's who plays on what track, and it's a creepy shot of I think it's Antoine Fafard dressed up. I'm not sure. He's wearing like a Phantom of the Opera mask, and there's all the guys who play Doomsday Vault. So really good album, Proto Mundi. Lots of great playing from Antoine Fafard on both bass and acoustic guitar. Great violin playing from Jerry Goodman. Outstanding drumming from Simon Phillips, and top-notch keyboard playing from Gary Husband, who adds like lots of beautiful textures and soundscapes for his synths. So really good album. So there you have it, Proto Mundi with the Doomsday Vault. Absolutely fantastic album. So we move on to the next album, which came out in 2019, and this is Bohrman Odyssey, which features Todd Schucherman on drums and Gary Husband on keyboards. So this is pretty much a power trio recording, and this is kind of like a concept album in a way, you know, as you can see by the creepy cover of the guy in the gas mask. So basically this is kind of like the end of the world. So it's a jazz fusion album, but with plenty of progressive elements in there as well, but highly enjoyable. So we've got here Invisible Pastel, Progression, the title track, Bohrman Odyssey Part 1, The Seventh Extinction, Bohrman Odyssey Part 2, Chemical Reactor, Bohrman Odyssey Part 3, Terra Nullius, Bohrman Odyssey Part 4, Time Lapse, Bohrman Odyssey Part 5, Inspired Mechanics, and Trident. It's a really good album. A little bit on the dark side, but still highly enjoyable nonetheless. So let's have a quick look. So as you can see, the guy in the gas mask, it looks a little bit like the Scarecrow from the Arkham games, you know, from like Arkham Knight. It kind of looks very similar to that. So as I mentioned, we've got Antoine Fafard on bass and all guitars, Todd Schucherman on drums and percussion, Gary Husband on lead synth and keyboards, who is really the big difference maker for this album. So there's the sleeve notes, and there's a shot of Gary Husband wearing a gas mask, which kind of reminds me a little bit of what Porcupine Tree and Stephen Wilson did many moons ago. So there's the sleeve notes. Some more sleeve notes. So as I mentioned, it's kind of like a concept album. A very bizarre shot of Antoine Fafard and the gas mask. There's Todd Schucherman on drums. Incredible drummer. Really good drummer here. There's a shot of Gary Husband at the keys. And a shot of all of the guys. And there is the man himself. So, all good stuff here. So, standout tracks for me are Invisible Pastel, Borman Odyssey Parts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Inspired Mechanics, Tridents, Chemical Reactor, The Seventh Extinction, and Progration. Really, really good album. This is a little bit on the dark side, but plenty of great music to get your teeth into. And Todd Schusterman is just an amazing drummer. And Gary Husband, what more can you say, really? He just does everything great. He can never put a foot wrong in my book, and he just sounds tremendous on the entire album. And now we're coming to the next album, and this came out in 2020, and this is a co-led album. This is Chemical Reactions by Antoine Fafard and Gavin Harrison from Porcupine Tree, King Crimson, and Pineapple Thief. So this is a little bit of a different album to the previous albums. Still got very much in that fusion metal sort of style and jazz elements that Antoine Fafard has incorporated on all of his albums, but this is more of like a classical chamber album. And we've even got the great Jerry Goodman back on violin, who just really makes all of the difference. And we've got the Janicek Philharmonic Orchestra. So this is all Antoine Fafard's compositions with the great Gavin Harrison on drums. Really, really good this is. It's kind of got like a chamber quality to the music. So there's the two chaps, Fafard and Harrison. And who plays what on each track. This album really shows you how versatile Antoine Fafard really is. He's not just a fusion guy who burns and shreds. You know, he's a thinking man's composer. A little bit more of the sleeve notes. And as I said, highly versatile. Really highly versatile. There's who plays in the orchestra. There's the two gentlemen. There's a lot of percussion. There's a lot of marimba as well. Really, really good album here. And there's the orchestra. So this is a very, very good album. This is. And Fafard and Harrison, they work really well together. So first track we've got is Transmutation Circle, Atonic Water, Vision of a Lost Orbit, Pair of a Perfect Four, which kind of sounds like a play on King Crimson's Three of a Perfect Pair. We've got a reworking of Proto Mundi, Singular Quartz, Holding Back the Clock, and the title track, Chemical Reactions. So some good compositions here. So standout tracks for me are Transmutation Circle, Proto Mundi, Holding Back the Clock, Chemical Reactions, and Atonic Water. Really good album this is. And as I said, it not only shows you how versatile Antoine Fafard is, but it also shows you a different side of Gavin Harrison. You know, I've always looked at Gavin Harrison in recent years. He's more of a metal guy, like a progressive rock and metal guy. But he can play jazz as well. And he shows here that he's no slouch here when it comes to like chamber classical music. So he's another one. He's very, very highly versatile as well. So there you have it. Chemical Reactions by Antoine Fafard and Gavin Harrison. So now comes the big question. Which Antoine Fafard album do I think is the best one? Oh boy. As I said at the very beginning, no bad album in this catalogue. And I usually always say that some albums are better than others, which I still stand by that. But at the same time, it's a very tough choice because any of these albums could be the best. They could be anyone's number one. That's how strong and brilliant this catalogue is. But if I had to choose one, which for me is my personal favourite and which one I consider to be the best, it's Proto Mundi. This is the one I go back to the most. And as I said, this is in a way Antoine Fafard's progressive rock concept album. It's really good. You know, as I said, got a super group here. Jerry Goodman, Simon Phillips and Gary Husband. really make the difference here. And Fafard is no slouch here. And he shows that he's not only an incredible bass player and composer, but he's an incredible band leader as well. And he can put together the best of the best. And boy, this is the best of the best. And also, it's got the bonus discs, as I mentioned, the Doomsday Vault, which is all like remixes and remastered versions of tracks from his previous albums. But this is the one for me. This is Antoine Fafard's masterpiece, and this is the one I love the most. I just think it's fantastic. And this, for me, was when Antoine Fafard truly peaked as a bass player. So there you have it. Proto Mundi, my favourite album. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite Antoine Fafard album? Is it Solus Operandi? Is it Occultus Traumitis? Is it Sphere? Is it Ad Perpetuum, Proto Mundi, Borromin Odyssey, or the co-led album with Gavin Harrison, Chemical Reactions? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for the 100th edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. Make sure you don't miss that. So until next time, take care everybody and stay safe, and once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.